Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin. Congratulations on number 9.
Oh, yes. We were the number 9 pet podcast in the U.S. today.
Woo!
So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So hello, Peter.
Hello.
Kimberly.
We're really excited to have you here. We have so much we can talk about. I always love by just starting out, if you want to give us a little bit of your background in case anybody who isn't familiar with you, but I bet everybody listening is probably already in Allie's crew.
Could be. Yeah. I'm super pumped to be here. Thanks for having me on as a guest. I'm honored. I love doing podcasts and interviews and stuff like that. I just love talking about dogs just like you guys. So I'm thrilled to be here. So thank you. And a little bit about me. My name's Peter Ciancarelli. I am just a pet parent, a dog dad, and my dog Allie is the reason why we're talking today. And she started it all for me. She's the reason I'm healthier today and the reason why I now take care of my new dog Tucker the way that I do. And she's really changed my life. And I have a Facebook group that's in memory of her where I've shared my journey with her and shared my experience going through various health struggles with her from cancer to some other serious issues that we can get into. And it's just been a sounding board and it's still going up. So if you'd like to visit, it's Allie's Crew, Allies, Allie's Crew on Facebook, a group.
I'll have a link in the show notes.
Awesome. And it's been a whirlwind. And that's I'm not a vet or anything or a doctor. I just like to speak on experience.
So one of the things I love about your Facebook group, and it's grown, I mean, it's probably over 5,000 or 6,000 people, maybe even more now, but it's one of the best dog groups that I'm in because there doesn't seem to be drama. There doesn't seem to be people that are, my way or the highway or arguing or it's really just this amazingly supportive group of people who are, open-minded and just want to know. And so I really have to commend you for creating this really great space in a world of sometimes toxic Facebook groups. Yours is a bright spot.
Thank you so much. It's a lot to run a group. I couldn't do it alone. I have a lot of great admins and moderators who I've kind of just asked, as things progress, because I would need help. And it's hard, going through life and we all kind of just help out and chip in as we can, and we approve posts and approve members and respond to things. And we recommend other groups and other health professionals and doing consults. It's a big juggling act. And, I really do pride myself on keeping things, healthy conversation, no bashing anybody, no bashing vets. We share others' work. It's really important to do all that, so thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And sometimes it's hard to know what you just said because I don't feel like it's going well or it's just overwhelming, but it's nice to hear, that feedback.
That is so great. It's interesting to me because as Erin said, I mean, I try to take a step back and think about the community and the people in the community. And I honestly, I believe that everyone came here because of a love of a dog or a cat or, some animal that encouraged them to start looking into feeding a healthier diet, maybe going as far as getting certified in animal nutrition, offering services to help others. So I do believe that everyone has the best of intentions. I just think that, with the loss of face-to-face conversations, we are harder on each other than we would if we were engaging face-to-face. And I also have to remind myself that, we're all having different experiences. So like, for instance, when it comes to, veterinarians that may be anti-raw, I ask myself, what, quote unquote, raw fed animals are they seeing where they're sick and they're not being fed, a nutritionally complete diet, and the person isn't willing to listen to, like, hey, your dog isn't doing so well. And I'm starting to, I don't know if, this has probably been going on all along, but I lately have gotten 2 messages like over the past month from 2 separate people who had a horrible experience in one of the raw feeding groups that's more focused on a style of raw feeding. And in one case, the dog died. The dog starved to death because they kept encouraging the person to fast their dog. And that, like at some point in time, like whatever was going on health-wise would reverse. And then she knew, okay, you got it. And she was supposed to fast until that happened. And what she did was she fasted until the dog basically starved to death and went critical and died. And it's so hard because I'm starting to look at our community in a completely different way, where we sincerely can do some damage. And yes, you can ask yourself, why would you allow your dog to starve to death? In speaking with both of the people, one person's dog, she stopped before her dog got to that point. And in both cases, they had a spouse that was like begging them to stop following this group because look at our dog.
Yeah.
But in both of the individuals shared with me that, when they're in the situation and they're surrounded by people who sound like they really know what they're talking about, and they're so confident, and they're quoting these success stories, and other people are joining the conversation, go, no, I know exactly. It's scary. I went through the same thing. And then this happened, and look at my dog now. And so they want to get over this hump, and they don't realize that it's going too far. So to have a group like yours out there, long story short, I think is so important, because you don't know if the people you are following are, I honestly think that they have the best of intentions, but the information that they're sharing could very well be dangerous for your dog.
Right. And I can sympathize with that, because in the very early stages when Allie was like, she was sick her whole life, meaning like she didn't want to eat her kibble. She had chronic GI issues, was losing weight, just looked really sickly, just a lot of health issues, in and out of the vet for the same stuff, in and out of the teaching hospital, in and out of the emergency room. And no one could ever pinpoint what was going on with her. And when I started my journey on holistic healing and health and well-being, I found a group back when, it started with like Yahoo groups. I don't even know if Facebook was even like started then, and this is a very well-respected group, and it still is to this day. And I won't name names, but, they were like, switch the food to raw, which, my dog trainer at the time was telling me switch to raw. So I listened and I tried a specific brand, but because it started off wonderful. She loved her food. She was eating again. She was excited about her food. And I was like, this is great. But then she started to take more setbacks and slowly pick out the meat and leave the rest. And I didn't know at the time we were dealing with such severe food intolerances and allergies and things like that, and a lot of gut issues. This was just the start of it for me. And she began to slowly stop wanting to eat that. And then we were back in the emergency room. And I was just I just remember feeling like this, people are telling me this thing, but the vet's telling me that thing. And, it's overwhelming. Not as extreme as what you were saying, Kimberly, but I can sympathize a little bit with that person, because I've been in their shoes. I'm sure both you have too at some point in your journeys. And yeah, you just gotta practice common sense and know that, okay, this is not right, but sharing information. And I'm glad we have, Allie's group and other groups too, and podcast. Like there's just so much more information available today. Like podcast, it's huge. And you never know who's going to be listening and who you're going to touch and reach and change, so thank you for doing what you guys do and getting good and safe information out there.
Yeah. So you and I have both experienced cancer with dogs.
And I have too.
And
I lost both my first 2 dogs to cancer.
Let's leave Erin out of this conversation. Nobody cares about her.
I mean, because that's why I'm so obsessive now, after losing Lucy and Kahlua to cancer, it was 7 years ago now, but that's why I've been so obsessive with these 2.
It's funny because you do become so very obsessive, and I'm trying to balance being intelligent and smart and educating myself with being like this helicopter dog mom that's like completely obsessed with every single thing that's coming through my news feed and wondering, do I need to do that? Do I need to do that? So I stopped with the broccoli sprouts, although I wanted to sprout everything under the sun.
Well, and also like helicoptering, like what's her poop look like?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's like, yeah. And I mean, it's one of those where, no, I do not keep a journal of my dog's poop consistency, but yes, I can tell you how everyone was doing today. So I'm curious to you with Peter are you in that same space of with your new dog? How are you balancing just basically enjoying a new dog and taking everything that you've learned from Allie and applying it today?
Yeah, it's a great question because I say all the time, my relationship with Tucker is completely different than with Allie. I'm in love with Tucker. I love him to pieces, but we just have a healthy relationship. Allie, I'm emotionally dependent on Tucker, but like Allie had severe separation anxiety. A good part of her younger years, I could not leave her crated. I could not leave her free roaming in the house. She broke her teeth in the crate. She broke her teeth on the front door of the house. Like she would destroy things. Eventually that went away and she was safe and everything. And that's another story. But, with Tucker, I don't have that, like in unhealthy, like emotional, you know what I mean, Laura?
Almost like codependency, right?
I can leave him at home for the day and go to work and yeah, I miss him, but I'm not stressed and anxious about, oh my God, what's he doing? And is he okay? And I think he can feel that too. And I'm not so like crazy gung ho about preventing cancer and never going to happen. I accept that he may get cancer. He could get an aggressive cancer. He's a Shepherd Pit Bull mix and maybe have some labanum. And he was neutered at like before 8 weeks. And I adopted him fully knowing that, because I fell in love with him when I met him at the shelter. And, and so I can take all the knowledge that I learned from Allie, putting him on various supplements and a good healthy diet and, and starting off with a holistic vet too, and doing all the right things that I learned from Allie's journey with her, and to give him the best chance at a long, healthy lifespan that I can. And I'm trying to balance experiences and living a good life with, not going so crazy with all the therapies and the supplements, things like that. I want him to enjoy his food, not have a ton of powders in there all the time. Sometimes I do like a supplement smoothie with some raw milk and stuff like that and leave the food plain, so they can more enjoy his food. But he's so food crazy. I don't think he'd really care if I did it the other way. But we do lots of hikes and whatnot. And so I just try to, it's about the balance, right? And I think with Allie, she was always sick too. And that's all I ever really knew from having my own dogs, that, he's healthy as far as I know, but I know that there's the potential and I'm doing all I can, but I'm not experiencing the stress and the worry that I was with Allie. I'm more like, okay, well, this could happen. I can't control it. And I'm going to do the very best I can. And if it happens, then I'll cross that bridge if and when it happens. And it's not like taking over my mind all the time every day like it was with Allie for a lot of years.
And you've had an injury with him, right? Didn't he have a CCL tear?
Yeah, a month after I adopted him, last Thanksgiving. So that would be like the day before Christmas, actually. I was hiking with a client of mine in the woods with her dog. And they were running on the trail playing and he was going crazy. Probably one of the first times he's really off leash, having a ball like that. And I didn't see it, but I heard it. He went right into a trail post, and I saw him lifting up his leg, and, it turns out he has a very partial CCL tear in his right leg. And was like, oh, great, here we go again, right? PT, back in the PT a month after Allie passed away, and I was there with her twice a week. They knew me very well. Back at the vet's office, back to, Angel Memorial Hospital in Boston, to see a surgeon and get a consult and all that. Consulting with my homeopath, my herbalist, all this stuff, right? And I was like, I had just probably spent 15 grand in the last 5.5 months with Allie, going through end of life and kidney failure and all that and IVDD. So, this was like, I was exhausted still and still burnt out. And I was building a relationship with Tucker still. And it was just like, oh, come on. Can I just catch a break? But I went into that mode again. I had some energy left and I did what I had to do. We got him a brace, did the surgery consult, didn't need it because the surgeon was very good. It was like, I don't think he needs it. Let him live his life, put a brace on, do some PT, keep doing what you're doing. And now a year later, you can't tell, like he's thriving still now. So, but yeah, I learned a lot in that situation too. You learn a lot in every situation, so I'm grateful for that, for going through that.
So how do you, with everything coming, you're managing a group, you're on social media, you're sharing information, taking in information. How do you keep an open mind and avoid getting overwhelmed with, information overload?
Well, I am overwhelmed. The truth is I have not watched a single Facebook Live since Allie passed away. Not because of Allie passing away, but just because your life is always evolving and shifting. And my life has taken a crazy turn in the last year. I've adopted a new dog. I'm still working full-time as a special education teacher, working with kids with severe autism on the spectrum. I have a part-time but thriving dog training business that I have been building over the last 5 years that Allie Allie was the reason that I became a dog trainer. And, and I got her to thank for that too. And I'm going to be a father in next June. So,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Like a human pup?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow, I didn't know that.
It's crazy. And I met her in my Facebook group. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow.
And she's a RN who is obsessed with functional medicine and ozone and does everything the way that I do and treats her dogs naturally and all that. So it's pretty crazy how life turns out. And she met Allie the week before she passed, and then her dog passed like 5 days later. It's really crazy how things work out like that, but so things have definitely changed a lot since my life looks very different than when it did a year ago when I had Allie. And so I haven't watched Facebook Lives and stuff like that because my life's all over the place. I'm trying to, when I come home from work, it's, grab Tucker, take him for a long walk in the woods before it gets dark if I can, or a leash walk in the neighborhood, and, do some phone calls of people that are reaching out about King Harvest for cannabis for their dogs with cancer. And I have a call after this too, and got to go to the gym before it closes to work out and take care of me. Then I got to make my dinner, my protein shake, feed the dog. It's like a juggle. So if I'm listening to a Facebook Live or a podcast, it's like in the car on the way to work or any time I get to, but it's been very difficult because just juggling so many things, like I'm sure you guys are, but it's something I want to get back into. I've missed a lot of information, and I'm sure there's a lot of new information that I am not aware of yet.
So I remember when Allie passed, you had a really lovely, it was like an online wake, like by Zoom. And there was a bunch of us that were on there, and everybody talked about like how they first met Peter or how, Allie came into their life. And I mean, I was shocked at how many people you talk with and you spend time with, and how many people, you were helping. You were spending like hours on the phone talking to people whose dogs had just been diagnosed, or dogs that they were trying to make that last decision. And I mean, I couldn't believe how much time you were spending. I mean, it's really commendable.
Thank you. That was crazy. It was like 70 people on that Zoom, and I was just like very emotional. And over the last 5-6 years, I've spent a lot of time on the phone with people. I've King Harvest to, thank for that, because I've been able to build a great relationship, not just with my group, but through them as well, and really meet a lot of great people that care about their dogs and want to help their dogs. And, it continues. I'm still doing it today. Like I said, I have a couple phone calls after this interview, and It's something I still enjoy doing. I'm texting all day long. People are sending me updates about how it's going. New people are reaching out to me on Facebook Messenger or by text. I give my cell phone out online, which in my group, which, I've questioned doing a couple of times, but at this point I'm like, whatever, I just encourage people to reach out for help if they need anything, and do the best I can. I have a lot of knowledge about diets, commercial, not the best with DIY, but I just say, hey, look into this or look into these options, or try to help them find a holistic vet. Some of them don't even know about the AHVMA website. So just saying, oh, you can go in here, type in your state initials, and even search by modality, and you can find a vet who does this in your area, or you can decide that however comfortable driving distance you're willing to drive. And so I've referred a lot of people to vets, and I just enjoy doing it. It brings me happiness.
That's awesome to hear. It's funny because a friend of mine, Krista Powell of Vibrant Canine, over the years, it's a couple of things that I run through my head that keep me from getting overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And one is to feed the dog in front of you. And so I got that from Krista Powell and from Thomas Sandberg of Long Living Pets. And so that keeps me from going all crazy with the formulations and such. And then another thing Krista said to me years ago was, when you start talking about yourself more than you're talking about the dogs, then it's probably time to take a step back and ask yourself why you're doing this. Because if, you ask yourself that question and it's about the dogs, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. But and so whenever I basically vanish for a couple of days off of social media, it's either because I'm sick or it's because I was starting to talk about myself, or just even if it's in my head where I'm aggravated and frustrated and everything. And it's just like, none of that serves the dogs that I'm here for. So it's time to take a break.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of that. And self-care is so important. It really is. I mean, in the beginning, sometimes I still have to I had to put up boundaries with somebody the other day. It's like texting me like, I need this ASAP. And I'm like, unfortunately I can't just drop everything at the drop of a hat and get back to somebody. It has to wait until I'm available or mutually available. You know what I mean? But like, you have to take that self-care. It's so important. And it's good that you recognize that, Kimberly, because, I would just get so snappy with people all the time in the beginning, because I would just drive myself into the ground, and forget to take care of Allie and take care of other people, but forget to take care of myself. And it got to a point where I literally had to make a decision because I was having health issues. So it's just so important. I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
I think another thing is again, it goes back to social media and the fact that we don't actually talk to each other. I think it makes a huge difference when you have those moments where you can look at each other, not just as in a live where everyone's looking at you, but when you're going back and forth and engaging with each other, it makes such a huge difference. Yeah. I recommended Dr. Kosher to someone years ago, and they came back to me and told me I can't work with her because she only cares about the money, and just said it was like this really awful email. And I mean, the woman, it wasn't awful to me. It was just sort of like an awful testament of Lori Kosher. And she's a friend of mine, and I knew that this wasn't who she was. And instead of like snapping back, I just responded, is it that, or is it that as a professional person who's running a business, she has fees and you weren't expecting her to have fees?
Yeah.
And the person responded, it's that. And thank you so much for saying that. Because my worry was that they were going to now go to several groups and talk about how this veterinarian only cares about the money. And it's one of those where when we get into our feelings with our dogs, I mean, gosh, some of the fights we get into about our dogs, they do come from a place of just love. And unfortunately, there isn't space. Social media doesn't give us space to actually just sit down and have a conversation about, adopting versus working with a reputable breeder,
Yeah.
or training collars versus, not using training collars, vaccinations versus not using vaccinations, kibble versus raw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we stand on one side of an issue and man, we plant that flag and hold still like we're in a horrible hurricane when everything is so nuanced when it comes to raising dogs. And that's the thing that I think I miss most about, like going through the pandemic and us not being able to see each other, is that, at the events like expos and conferences, that was really the places where we can all sit down and at a meal, at a table, at a bar and have, at a meal, at a table and a bar, dog people will sit there and start talking about the craziest things. But you walk away from these events feeling so invigorated.
Yeah. I've not been to one. It's on my list. It's on my list.
I know. I missed you. I thought you were coming to Albany this year.
I thought it was too. It was in the midst of Allie's end of life. And it was like, I was playing it by ear and I just never ended up panning out, but I definitely wanted to go. And I wanted to go to Carrie Hyde's, the spa one in California too. It was a great lineup.
So good too.
I know. I heard
that one was hard to get to from us East Coasters.
Yeah. Well, it's finally, because it feels like everything is on the East Coast. I mean, that's not true, but because to be honest, there's like 3 things. I mean, we don't have a whole lot going on.
I always think everything's out in California.
Yeah, because it's like there's the Healthy Dog Workshop, or the Healthy Dog Expo in Albany. I don't even know if Dogs Naturally has done a summit since 2019, but theirs is in Chicago, which is technically the Midwest, and then there's small little things like which I'm still really jealous about is the BJ's open house. But on our coast, on our coast, we talk about doing things, but Carrie Hyde's event was really the first event that we've had over here specific to, what we all talk about. And to me, it was too short. It needed to be 2 days because all of the speakers were amazing, but they gave us half of the story. And there was another half that it was sort of like, I want more information. And even she was like, yeah, exactly. So hopefully next year we'll get either fewer speakers or a 2-day event.
That would be awesome.
I know.
I'm coming next year.
I'm coming to Albany next year. Yeah, I've actually already spoken to Lori about it.
I'm bummed that I missed the BJ's open house because I drive to Pennsylvania a couple times a month and I pass by drive through Lancaster. And
did you really?
Yeah, to go see my girlfriend, and it was been talking to Billy Hoekman about hey, we got to meet up and all that. And I guess that if you go to BJ's Raw in person at the farm, whatever, you can get 40% off like the containers of the raw food. So I'm gonna stock up on the way home
because I'm only an hour from Lancaster.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome. It's a nice area.
Every time we have someone on, Erin starts making plans. It makes me so mad because it's like pretty soon it's going to be like these monthly dinners with all these people getting together. Chelsea Kent, Billy Hoekman.
That's funny.
Peter. I mean, all these people are, and I'm just going to be sitting over here like,
oh my gosh.
I talked to Ruby on the phone. I mean, it's just like Ruby and I were texting yesterday. I called Krista Thursday. I mean,
yeah. It's so wonderful how everyone has made like such good friends through online, the dogs. Like I have a couple like Facebook Messenger group chats of people that I've been friends with for a few years. And we all have challenging dogs with health issues. And we just share the daily struggles of like, oh, so-and-so was up all night itching and scratching, or so-and-so has diarrhea, and we're there to give advice. We're there to listen to them vent. We're there to, it's just nice to have those connections, that like system.
It is. It's so important because, I mean, I don't know about the two of you, but, my friends, I think outside of this community, I have one friend, Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. I hope you're listening because I am your friend and you should support me by listening to my podcast. But Sarah, who I've been friends with almost my entire adult life. and she moved to Tennessee in 2020. So we don't get to see each other anymore, but we chat. But as far as within the community, Tina is a really good friend of mine. I hope you're listening, Tina, because as your friend, you should be supporting me by listening to my podcast. Thank you. But Tina and I met when I was researching raw feeding. And we had dogs that had similar health issues, and we were on the same journey in which start sharing things back and forth. And those type of friendships, man, they solidify because you've gone through the trenches with this person and you can say anything to them. I mean, you can talk to these people in a depth that you can't even speak to your veterinarian in, because I don't know, it's not that you can't, but there's just something about them where you know that they get it.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people find those connections. And I think it's hard for some people. So how would you, like even both of you, Erin and Peter, what would you suggest? Like if someone is out there looking to make connections, how do you even start making those type of connections?
Erin, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, Erin, introvert.
I was just going to say, I am not the one to ask.
How do you make friends, Erin?
I mean, I feel very fortunate that I have a big community of dog people IRL in addition to online. I've been volunteering here in Baltimore since 2008. So, I mean, it's like almost 15 years. So I have this like amazing network of people, and obviously some of them I'm closer to than others. But when my Lucy had insulinoma, which was like this super rare disease, there was like this amazing group for insulinoma dogs on Facebook. And, it's a small group. There's only a couple hundred people in it because it's such a rare disease. But, and I'm still in that group because I'm still like, if there's something I know that can help people, I always want to provide that help. And so I actually had there was a couple people in that group that I kind of got to know. But yeah, I am sort of more of a social media introvert. I usually stick to the people I actually know, like in real life. But I'm grateful to have a huge network of awesome dog people who get it in real life. So
yeah,
that's awesome. I would just say, the way I did it was just interacting in Facebook groups, specifically my own, and people reaching out to me for help, and talking to so many people. You just make connections, like one of the original people that I helped 6 years ago had a cat with lymphoma, and the cat ended up living to 22 years old. And, she was so thankful that I opened her eyes to like, raw feeding and CBD and all the, holistic, therapy things and whatnot. And she made all these changes, which really she contributes to why the cat lives as long as it did with the cancer and stuff. And so, and she is an admin in my group now, and we talk multiple times a week, and we're good friends. We never met in person, but she's a good friend of mine. And it's just, that's how I've always made connections. It's just, when there's a connection there, and it just happens pretty naturally and organically, it's happened a lot of times. So that's how I've always done it.
Yeah.
How did you develop such a great friendship with Dr. Margo Roman? Because she's amazing. Like of all the people you could have like right in your backyard, that's amazing.
I'm an intense client. Yeah, I mean, I brought her Allie to Margo like 5 years ago, I think 6 years ago, and I was, I had a couple dogs. My ex at the time, we had a shepherd and 2 border collies and plus Allie, and we brought them all there. And with Allie specifically, like she was like, Dr. Roman was like, she's got the, I'm pretty certain she's got this based on her medical history and looking at the timeline and all that. And I was just like, I want to do the fecal transplant. I don't want to think about that other thing you mentioned. And I just want to come here for this, and I'm done. And I wasn't very open-minded to what she had to say. I only wanted to hear what I wanted to hear. And, but we had a great relationship. I was emailing her all the time and, taking Allie to see her a lot because she was so ill. And Margo really helped me get Allie better and heal her. And, starting with the gut microbiome. Right. And so, and I just kept picking Margo's brain and picking her brain. And then I started to ask her things like, well, I have this Facebook group. Would you mind coming on and talking about this? Because I wanted to share it. I just wanted to get everything we were doing with Allie out there so people could learn and go on the journey with us. And so Margo loved that. And so we'd go on Facebook Live like once a week, or I'd go to her house. We'd go for a hike with her dogs and Allie, and we'd do a Facebook Live on flea and ticks. And, whatever sometimes we do like a live Q&A, people could ask whatever they wanted. And we didn't always have a lot of viewers, but it was always like, to me, it was just all about just having fun. I still love doing it. And we haven't been on Facebook Live in a very long time. It's something I've thought about reaching out to her again to do. But it's just, been crazy. But she just became a really good friend of mine, just picking her brain. And I realized that I wouldn't have known about all this stuff had I not befriended her, because you can only learn so much in a 90-minute holistic vet consult. We would go on hikes and she'd reach down, with Allie and her dog, she'd reach down into a broken, rotting tree stump and say, here, feed Allie this. It's tree microbiome and dirt that hasn't been really touched with glyphosate probably. And maybe probably has, but it's in tree bark and stuff like that. And her dogs eat it. And Allie, she's like, it'd be good for her gut. And Allie ate it. So little things, and I would do that all the time in the woods. Allie would start eating tree bark, or I'd pick up some dirt and be like, here, or I'd sprinkle some dirt on her raw meaty bone. Just little things that I learned from her that I wanted to share with everybody else. I wanted her, she's so brilliant. I wanted to share her knowledge with everybody, about fecal transplants and ozone, because those two modalities changed the game for me. They really did. They were huge.
Yeah, that's what healed Penny when Penny had like a major health crisis, because our vet had actually gotten to see Dr. Roman speak at like the holistic vet conferences. And so she was like all on board with it. And so Penny was having like this major health crisis, and that's what cured her, was doing the fecal transplants. And what I learned from Dr. Roman answering my question on one of your Facebook Lives was to kind of continuously give, like, I just buy Animal Biome and I just kind of give her kind of like 1 or 2 a week. I don't do it like, just as sort of a maintenance thing. Yeah. And that was something that Dr. Roman suggested when I asked the question. And so that's what I've been doing.
That's awesome. I am just obsessed with like poop.
Yeah.
I feed pre and probiotics. I like to rotate, like specific pre and probiotics that from certain companies, and using whole fresh food ingredients and feeding poop, and stuff like that. And Tucker got a fecal transplant about a month after I adopted him. I wanted him to like decompress, build a relationship with more, not just take him right in for that,
Hi, nice to meet you. Guess what's going up your butt?
Right? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But it was one of the things Margo was like, he was, his litter was found in a haystack in Texas. The mom, a rancher shot the mom, and they were found at like 4 weeks old. He didn't have a lot of time with the mom. I don't know if he got much of her milk or colostrum. So I put him on colostrum, gave him a fecal transplant. He had a lot of vaccines initially, so we did some homeopathy with that, and ozone as well, and just tried to get him, in the microbiome that we gave him. The fecal transplant was from 6th generation, a puppy that is intact, that had the hormones, and we put him on a supplement that has, that hormone support as well. And that's the stuff I learned about Allie, that, to get, what are the things that I should do with Tucker? That's like the foundation, right? Focus on the gut, focus on the lack of sex hormones. Those are the 2 biggest things that I've been working on with him, in addition to the acute stuff, which was the CCL tear. But the fecal transplant was great because it's, it's a fresh slurry up his bum rectally, takes a 20 seconds, and it's like restorative. And they do ozone right before it to get rid of the biofilm that's accumulated in the gut, all that slimy stuff that you wake up with in your mouth that can prevent the new bacteria and whatnot and the microbiome from taking hold. So they get rid of that, and they put the new biome in, and then I just maintain them. Like every couple of weeks I buy a bag of like poop, and I just give them in shadow a piece. They eat it right out of my hand. I'm lucky. I don't have to hide it, and they just take it. And that's just how I maintain it, in addition to the diet and stuff like that. And feeding them fresh, filtered, clean water and all that stuff. But it's not perfect because glyphosate's everywhere. And that's why I try to do the poop every now and then to give their body, I really think it's important. But I'm lucky that we have a company like Animal Biome that offers those capsules, and they're great. And, obviously there's differences in donor qualities, which we won't get into, but, I just love that we have a company that we're heading in a good direction. I think it can only get better from here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to see that more people know about this. Like, I was trying to think, like, when did I first hear the word microbiome? Like, it's had to have been within the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
It's such a huge thing. It's 80% of the immune system, right? And, and so it's such a huge thing. Whenever we're dealing with really anything, cancer, in particular, it's so big. It's such an important piece, and I really stress the importance of a fecal transplant, but I also understand that just like feeding all raw, it's not always possible. And I try to help people also with, like, you can rotate these products and feed these fresh foods, and you can just diversity and balance over time. And we can do the best we can with that,
Yeah. That's how I look at my dogs as well, is diversity and then balance over time. And diversity isn't just food. And I think a lot of people think that it's just the food, but it's the supplements, it's the CBD oil. I mean, everything that I give to my dogs, or I should say most things that I give to my dogs, I have several brands that I buy from. And in some cases I make it myself. So when it comes to like kefir and raw goat's milk, now I'm doing solutions, and I still have, from when I took all of the Cure from every single pet store in my town, I still have plenty of Cure. And I tried to turn some of it into cheese. It didn't work. And so I'm like still kicking myself for throwing out a gallon's worth of Cure, because I'll never get that back. But, when it comes to CBD oil, I alternate between 3 or 4 brands of CBD oil. And when it comes to, just pretty much everything, I have like mushroom tinctures. I alternate between several brands of mushroom tinctures. And it's funny, someone contacted me today because they wanted to know like my schedule of how I alternate. And I'm just sort of like, I felt like I was such a disappointment, because it's like, I have a huge basket that has all the different things. I don't give a lot of supplements. It's just that the basket is full because there's like 3 different brands of one supplement. And so I reach my hand in and pull out, and it's like, this is what you're getting today. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, except for gut stuff. So there are some gut things that are going on, or if there are gut things going on, then I'll start focusing a little bit more on gut health, which is kind of funny, that we're talking about microbiome is, when I first started feeding raw, gut problems were diarrhea and loose stool.
Yes.
Whereas today we understand that gut problems is, oh, my dog has a hot spot, or my dog's ears are a little yeasty, or, my dog is itching a lot or licking a lot. I mean, there's so many
next
things.
Level.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more next level stuff. That's crazy you said that, because, and I've heard this out of like Dr. Roman's mouth in just our conversations together. If a dog if their gut is shot, can a dog with a solid, healthy microbiome, compared to a dog with a shot gut, can the dog with the bad gut navigate chemotherapy or even homeopathy as well as a dog with a really healthy, good gut can? All these can, you know what I mean? So I'm really happy you said that, because it's like, can a dog heal from a hot spot as well as a dog, with a bad gut, as well as a dog with a good gut can? There's just so much we don't know, Well,
and that's what it comes down to, after, our success with Scout, yes, he's gone, but still 520 plus days is, when I took him in because he went critical. So I took him in to help him cross over. And I'm crying and I'm holding my dog, and the veterinarian's like, Apollo, I am so sorry, et cetera and so forth. And I looked at her and I just said, we got over 520 days after the diagnosis. And I can tell she wanted, it was like, what?
What did you do?
And she had to pull it back to go, that is great. But I knew she wanted to know. And it's like, and I wanted to tell her, but just not then.
Yeah.
But it was sort of a reminder to me. And that's what I focus on now, is the fact that we got all of that time. And, in the time since, in thinking about, like, for instance, Rodrigo, who's 12 and a half now, almost 13 actually, what did I do differently, or what is different about them? And with Rodrigo, it was because it all started with his gut. Mm-hmm. And so I've constantly been focused on gut health with him. And he's still, he went to the vet today and they are looking at him like he's still good. He's like, I think, because I'm going to a traditional vet now, and in their eyes, a dog his age should be dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas he's thriving.
Mm-hmm. Same with Penny.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Like, my vet said something that scared me a little bit the last time we saw her, because Penny's a rescue. She's been with us for 7 years. She started going gray pretty quickly after we got her, like within the first year. So I know she wasn't like a pup when, we found her. And so I always think that she's like, maybe 11 or 12, maybe she was 4 or 5 when I found her. And, my vet was like, Penny could be like 14 for all we know. And I'm kind of like, don't say that. Like, I can't. No, she's like 11.
That's a good age.
Yeah.
Don't do one of those biological age tests then.
Yeah, I don't.
So those are real? The biological age tests?
They're real? Do I know?
Are they accurate?
I don't know. I did a test on Allie. It was her biological age, but then it tells you her, her chronological age. Then it tells you her like DNA age, or is that a biological age? Yeah. So and she was like younger than her chronological age. So I don't know if it's real. It seemed pretty legit. And I know there's one that's through MIT, which has got to be legit, but it's like in like the test stage. So I don't know. Hopefully.
I need to go. I bet you Embark will start. If they don't have something similar, I bet you they'll have one eventually.
That'd be great.
Which is why I just love, I had a company reach out to me who wanted me to promote their DNA test. And I was just sort of like, Embark, as long as Embark is on us, like you guys have to do some really amazing stuff for me to stop promoting Embark. And I just told them, it's like, I promote Embark for these reasons. And I never even heard of, okay, well, thanks anyway. It was just gone in the wind, because I love, all of the information that it gives you. But I'll have to look and see if it'll start doing that. That would be really
I've gotten that too with like dog food companies too, like promote our Kibble and stuff like that. And that was good that you did that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's funny because when it comes to Kibble, I know that, we as a community unintentionally demonize Kibble. Like right now is it Mars that bought Champion?
Yeah.
And that's like, everyone's like, oh no. And Mars has all the vet clinics and such. And it's just sort of like, I can't even bring myself to speak on these things because I don't feed Kibble. And I'm so lucky to be in a situation where I don't feel like I have to feed Kibble. I don't have to go to Bainbridge or any other type of chain vet clinic. There's plenty of options around us. Even like with traditional vets, I feel comfortable where I live taking my raw fed dogs to a traditional vet and saying, no, I'm not letting you vaccinate my dogs, and walking out with without no stress or anything. Yeah. And I know that this is so not a common experience for so many people. Mm-hmm. So I just stay out of those discussions because I don't know what I could possibly contribute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody asked me for a Kibble suggestion today, and like you guys, I have some connections in the dog industry, and like I reached out to a few friends who own pet stores, holistic pet stores, and I'm like, what are the lesser of the evils? And they gave me some that are like synthetic free, meal free, no gum, no rendered ingredients, things like that. And I'm like, that's great. That sounds great. And although it's still not ideal, but it's better than the stuff at like Walmart,
Yeah.
Well, and it sucks so bad because, the really good Kibble brands, because of what they do, and I can only think of one, to be perfectly honest, because they don't have synthetic ingredients.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They're still expensive because of the steps that they're taking to make it as good of a Kibble as possible. And it's interesting because it's hard to get my head around the cost of things sometimes, simply because, not because it's, I can't afford it. I would make it happen if it was something that I had to do.
Right.
But I know that when people are brand new to fresh food, they're coming to us with a sick dog. They're completely overwhelmed. They're probably talking to a veterinarian who may not be saying, hey, feed fresh food.
They've probably already spent thousands of dollars at a vet and haven't gotten any, answers or relief.
Yeah.
Right.
And so then to tell them, hey, go and feed this food or try this, it is hard to get them to look past the price point. So do you ever have those type of discussions in your group, and how do you guys help people move past the price point?
Yeah. I mean, occasionally we do, where, people have multiple large dogs, like 100-pound plus, or, it's really hard when you have multiple dogs, like all Bernese mountain dogs, for example, and you can't afford to feed them all raw, or especially commercial raw. At the convenience, you pay more and stuff. So, that happens once in a while, and occasionally people bicker and all that, but it's, it's hard. It's like, I always try to say, just, the less processed, the more fresh, the better. And, like Rodney Habib would say, used to say, take a tablespoon of processed out, add a tablespoon of fresh, so I just never try to make it all or nothing, or it has to be perfection, because nobody wins that way. The dog will lose, and you end up making people upset, or making people feel like they're a bad dog parent, and that's not okay. So yeah, I mean, if we can just maybe switch from dry to wet, or switch to a better dry brand or a better wet brand, or go to freeze dried or something. I don't know. There's always different options. I was talking to somebody close to me today about this. She can't afford to keep feeding her dogs, cooking for her dogs anymore, for multiple reasons. And so I sent her a couple dog foods to try that were, the lesser of the evils, and how she could make it, make it better. Here's some dried cod skins for dog treats and omegas, and here's a bag of Dr. Harvey's. You can make your cooked food spread out longer, and you can just switch it up every day. So it's still expensive at the end of the day, but there's always, I spent a few weeks feeding, chicken, a bag of chicken dog food, raw food, but I've been trying to avoid chicken for the longest time. But I had a month or two where I was like, I can't keep spending this $80 on a rabbit. I'm going to spend a few weeks buying chicken because it's $40.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world. So I did that to make things more affordable for me. So, you just do the best you can. And I think it's good for us because we know the options. We've spent the hours and hours and hours doing research and going through the trenches and what, like you said, and we can help guide people a little bit better. Yeah, it's a daily struggle to try to make everybody happy and meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
It's all individual.
That's another thing that someone said to me. It was Lauren Groh, who she owned a pet store, Furry Face, in Southern California before she moved to Texas. She retired, I think either during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. And that was one thing that she always said, because people would ask her, you're into this holistic stuff, you're promoting raw feeding. Why do you have a pet store that sells kibble? And she would always say, I'm meeting people where they are. You cannot take someone who's used to feeding Purina and switch them all the way to especially a commercial raw diet. I mean, just the price point alone will have them running for the hills. And so she instead introduces them to a better, they come into her store and they're looking for, Purina Pro Plan. And she's like, oh, well, we don't carry that, but this is what we do carry. And she just slowly starts introducing them to better foods and better treats. And, they come in and they start seeing the improvements in their dog and they want to do more. And she guides them up that ladder until they're at a place where they're comfortable. And sometimes that's raw. Sometimes that's just a hybrid diet or dehydrated or freeze dried or whatever the case may be. And that always stuck with me. And because it's so important to raw is great for me, but it may not work for everyone else. And it's important to remember that in the beginning, I wasn't sure if it would work for me because I was overwhelmed. And I didn't know that raw was sold in this pet store when I first started. It didn't never even occur to me that people did it themselves. I thought you had to buy it from a brand because I was coming from, you buy Kibble at the pet store. So where do I get this raw? I found it online. It was frozen and shipped to you. So it was super expensive. And it never occurred to me that I didn't know that Darwin's Pet was just right into my backyard. I didn't know anything. And so I look at a lot of people who are new the same way. It's like they have no idea what they're doing. So let's treat them like a skittish little bird.
Yeah, I mean, I first heard about feeding raw in 2008. And it blew my mind. It completely blew my mind because we had just bought whatever was at the grocery store or whatever. And I spent all this time looking into it and researching it. And then I think it was 2013 before we could afford to buy, I remember it, we paid my husband's Jeep off. And then the next month I started buying raw pet food,
It was 2013 for me too. It was just it was overwhelming. And, but it's one of those things where I appreciate people like you, Peter, who are making a space for people who can't feed raw. It's not, Allie's raw feeding cancer crew. Right. Raw feeding is just a segment of the story. There's so many other things that we can be doing to raise healthier dogs. Yeah. So after, your experience with Allie, and now that you have what's your new dog's name?
Tucker.
Tucker's raw.
Yeah. I know.
But, with this experience, what other things can you encourage people to do? If raw feeding just is not going to happen, what other things would you encourage people to do with their dogs?
Oh man. Exercise is so important. I am a big fan of going on trail walks, letting dogs run and, be safe, happy, and free, and, dig in the dirt and all that stuff, and sniff things. And it's so important for them to get that experience. It's one of my goals to have a little cabin, in the woods, and just to be everyday life. I'm lucky that I live next to a lot of, beautiful trails, and it's very dog friendly here where I live. And, it's just something I really love doing. It's my therapy too. And, I love that time in the woods, letting Tucker and Shadow just run and play and get exercise. Shadow's my parents' beagle, so he comes with me too. But that's one of the biggest things, exercise is so important, and, try to feed as much fresh food as you can and reduce the amount of processed food if you can. Just try to improve little by little. And even if that means just going and throwing an egg on top of it, cooked or raw, preferably free range or pasture raised, and learning about the labels and things, just always trying to learn, and trying to do better if you can. So that's what I would recommend, is just always trying to improve things and learn, because I think that's just how it naturally happens. If you can't do all these supplements, maybe you learned about medicinal mushrooms, for example, and you find a product and, that's for dogs, and you try that 1 month, then you do something else if you can. It's just, if you can learn for 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, and just in your studies online, and by joining these Facebook groups, and you make these small improvements, and you rotate and you balance over time, I think that's a great thing to approach, a great way to approach things. It doesn't have to be all or nothing and perfection. I think people get caught up in that, and then they get overwhelmed. They don't do anything. And so that's what I would do, is just try to do the best you can.
Because none of us jumped into doing everything that we do now just overnight. It's been a very,
years.
It's a journey. Yeah. And I appreciate that about Peter. And I think you do such a good job of being I'm a pet parent. This is what I do. These are all these little steps that you can take. And I think it's important to have those conversations and to show people who are really doing it. And, it's I didn't know any of this stuff, 10, 12 years ago. And, it's just been this whole journey over time, and not giving up, and not being defeated, and not thinking whenever there's a problem, somebody who I know in my life, I just found out that somebody close to them has stomach cancer, stage 4 stomach cancer. And so from my own cancer battle, I went into like, here's everything that I know, like that I hope will give them some hope, because it's like, I always go into problem solving mode. And I guess I always hope that more people will go into that problem solving mode instead of like feeling defeated by it mode.
Yeah. And sometimes that happens initially and then they go into that problem solving mode. And, after they get the diagnosis, they are able to process and digest it, and then they start making changes. But that's great that you do that, because it saves people a lot of time of having to research it, probably years, if you've had to learn and accumulate all that knowledge, and then you can pass it over. It's a great gift to be able to give somebody.
Yeah. I belonged to, when Sydney was diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma, I joined a Facebook group. And one thing that I took from that group was the amount of firsthand experiences shared in the files. So they had a file where it basically went dog by dog when they were diagnosed, so that you can quickly count how long they've been alive post-diagnosis, and what the diet was, what the supplementation was, and then what other things that they were doing was, what specifically the diagnosis was, because no hemangio is the same. So that you can go through the list and find a dog that had a similar diagnosis as yours, and maybe look at that protocol. And that's the reason why I created a cancer page on my website, because it saved me so much time, because your head is you're overwhelmed. You're looking at this, especially as a raw feeder, because we're not supposed to have cancer dogs. We feed raw. And you're so completely overwhelmed with everything. And for me, I knew well enough to not race to social media with my dog has cancer post, because I knew I would get hundreds of comments of people telling me what to do. And I needed to get to a place where I can share that this is what was happening, and silence internally all the messages, because I already had my resource that I was following. But it is so very important. And to wrap this up, I wanted to talk about something that you and I talked about when we were on with Scott. And that is kind of like the energy that we as pet parents have around our dogs, whether they're healthy or sick. I recently got a message from someone whose dog was diagnosed with lymphoma, and they were like, I can't stop crying. I can't stop. Basically they were spending days just mourning their dog that wasn't showing visible signs of cancer beyond the swollen lymph nodes. And it's a tough one, because on one hand, I don't want to take away someone's right to process something the way that they need to process it. But on the flip side, what does that do to our dogs who don't know that they're sick, but they see every time we look at them, we're crying. And so something's going wrong.
Yeah, I definitely think they do pick up on that energy. And I definitely agree with you. I think that it's important to process and digest and to work through those emotions. I've heard Julianne Lee, founder of Adored Bees, talk about wailing, just letting it all come out. It can be really healthy and therapeutic. And some people do that. And, you do what you have to do, but eventually you have to, come to terms that this is what's happening, and the things we can't control and that we can't control, right? And I think this falls into things that we can control. We can't control that we got this diagnosis. This is where we are right now, and let's move forward to see what can we do to help support, and not necessarily fall into let's cure. That would be wonderful if it happens, and I've seen it several times, and it's truly, I think, an individual thing, and it's not just one thing or another, but, but I think that just coming at it from a perspective of how can I support my dog and give them quality of life, and, live every day to the fullest, from experience wise, like trail walks, like I talked about, to, improving things like the diet and supplements and therapies and seeing a holistic vet, things like that, or an integrative vet. And it takes a while to get to that point. I think I am lucky because I've been through it with so many people like you guys have. And that helped me process when I would talk to people about their dog and share my experience with Allie. I think it helped me process and accept that Allie was dying too, because I would always, talk about it. and it helped me get to that point. And I think that's the difference where my perspective can be different is, I had so much support like that where I could process it with other people too. I think that's important, when you're by yourself alone, and I think it can be a lot harder for sure. And that's why a support network is so important.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and going back to what we were talking about earlier of having the friends, I have, like Erin, I'm also involved in local rescue. So I have an entire community of friends. I mean, we spend holidays together and, we went and saw, one of my girlfriends and I went and saw Black Panther last weekend together. It's very good. But, we have, this great support system. So they were there for me when my dog passed away. But I think the most beautiful thing that happened when I lost Scout, Johan was out of town that day. So I was on my own, but my neighbors called me and they were like, we can get you drunk. And I was like, okay. But it was one of those where, like even with my mother-in-laws, my in-laws, they're fine with animals. They don't have one way or the other. They don't have their own pets, but they recognize how we feel about our dogs and honor that. So I really, really think that that's something that's so important, is to not only have people in your life that are animal lovers, but people who, even if they don't love, and I shouldn't say love because we all love our animals, it's all very precious, but
right.
If for those of us who go above and beyond, the 2.0 pet parents, to have people in your life that respect that you do go above and beyond, and that you do have a somewhat different connection to your animal than the average person, because of the time we spend in Facebook groups and reading books and watching documentaries and talking to each other about what
making
we can
podcasts.
Do. Yes, exactly. All of these type of things that we do, having people in your life that respect that and don't diminish that. Like my grandmother, before she passed away, I think one of the most amazing gifts she gave me was, I got my love of dogs. I inherited that from my father because he was insane. And I love to think that if he were still alive today, he would get a kick out of everything that was coming out about dogs.
That's awesome.
Because back then, that was a time when people didn't spay and neuter their dogs, and they did feed their dogs what they were eating, and dogs were living longer lives. And so to him, what I'm doing today, I mean, I don't think he would have labeled it the way I do, but still, he would really understand that. And my grandmother once told me he would be so proud of what you're doing. He would just get such a kick out of it. I'm like, I know, right? He would totally get this. And like, it's nice to have people. So if you're listening to this, if you have anyone in your life that gets it, hold on to that person because, you will need them when the chips are down. It's nice to have someone who isn't going to say something like, well, just go get another puppy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I remember when we were struggling, with Lucy, when we lost Lucy and Kahlua, it was one of the things that was so hard with both of those things was it was hard getting the right diagnosis for either of them. And so it was like, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know if it was the end. And, there were people in my life before we even knew what the diagnosis was that were like, oh, just, put them down. And it was like, we still had over a year left with Lucy, beyond that, like we had like a really good, like year and a half, with her. And like, I'm so grateful for every single day of that. And sometimes I look back because I just remember how fearful I was. They were my first two dogs. I had never lost a dog before, and it was like I didn't know how I would survive that. So I don't always think I was in the best emotional place. But now after going through my own cancer journey, realizing how much of it is a mindset game and getting yourself through it. And so I like to think anyway that I'd be in a better place to slow down and just appreciate each day, because I think that's what the dogs have taught me in life is like how to stop, how to slow down,
Yeah.
how to just enjoy walking outside and feeling the sun on you,
Yep. For sure. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so important. I remember when Allie was going through her and, the last few months of her life, I was like so stressed about, I didn't want to miss the lessons she was trying to teach me. Right. And you always hear about like, living in the moment and, like, it's like, I'm like, am I doing that? Am I, what am I not doing? It was stressing about it. I was like obsessing and stressing about living in the moment. And,
That's not how that works.
it's not how it works. You're right. But it just clicked. I worked with like Isla Fishburne and she helped me a little bit and, yeah, I mean, and then it's oddly enough, when I had come to that point in the journey where I was like, I'm going to be okay when she's not here. I'm going to miss her like crazy. And I still do. Still think it's hard. I see her picture. I hear her name every day because my group is in memory of her. Right. And people ask me about her all the time. So I love that. I love that. But, her pictures are everywhere all over my apartment. But, I do miss her. But, my life has to go on and, and she would want me to be happy and to move on and adopt a new dog. And Tucker, I really think that she sent me Tucker, because she wasn't a very affectionate dog. But Tucker, and I would always think like, oh, I really wish I could have a dog that would want to cuddle with me. And he's like over the top, and she's probably laughing, like, I bet you still wish you had that. It's just great. And he's, I love him to death. And so I think that it all happens for a reason and the way things happen for a reason. And I'm just grateful that all the lessons that Allie taught me. I love the perspective that I have on raising dogs and their health and well-being and dealing with, sickness and chronic disease and all that stuff too. But it took a long time to get to that point. It was very unhealthy from like obsessing about it to now like being confident in what I know and, just being okay with like what I'm doing and not stressing about it.
Yeah.
And not neglecting myself anymore too. Because when Allie passed away, like in March, I went to the doctor because my chest and my arm was hurting. My blood pressure was through the roof.
Oh, wow.
Came to find out it runs on my mom's side of the family. And my doctor was like, I don't know how you haven't had a heart attack. Like just all the stress and the eating and the everything, all the bad habits, like everything. I wasn't doing anything that I was doing for my dog. Anything. And so that was definitely a kick in the butt that I need to make changes and that Allie would want me to do that. And so, that is a big thing.
Do you ever see her out of the corner of your eye?
No, I don't, but I like see things that I'm like, okay, that was weird. Like things will pop up that I'm like, okay, that was that a sign, that I question. Like, a month after she passed away, no. I don't know if it was Christmas or New Year's, a month or two after she passed away. It was like after all the snow and stuff had like, melted after the storm and whatnot. I found I still have it. It's on my windowsill. It's like one of her paw pads because she had mobility issues. I had to, they were probably toxic, the adhesive, but it was like, at that point, it was like, she can't, hardwood floors everywhere, So I found one on the driveway and it was almost looked like untouched. And I'm like, how does it look so good at weathering after all the weather and stuff? So I took that as a sign, like, cause I was lonely for the holidays. And I'm like, oh, she's still with me, and I saw something online that was like, says, I'm always with you. And I was really missing her that day. And I took that as a sign. So I don't see her out of the corner of my eye. Sometimes I can feel her energy, like on hikes with Tucker and Shadow, because we hike the same trails every single day and I can feel her with us. I think that's pretty cool. I just kind of take it in and appreciate it. It's just it's just something you feel. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Kahlua was the one I would see out of the corner of my eye. And Lucy is the one that left things for us. Like Lucy had this stuffy toy that we had gotten on a vacation one year. And it got lost at some point. And like we tore at the house apart and couldn't find, it was like, we always called it an aardvark. I don't know. It was this weird, like looking stuffy toy. And it was gone for like 2 years before she passed. a month after she passed away, I was sitting on the floor and like had my foot kind of went under the coffee table and I kicked something and I'm like, what is that? And we like pushed the coffee table out of the way and it was that stuffy toy. And it was exactly 1 month after she passed away. And I'm like, we hadn't seen that thing in 2 years. Wow. And we vacuumed, we had moved that coffee table in that time and had never found it.
Crazy. That's crazy.
It sits up on our dresser now.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. I have Allie's toys, her favorite toys, like tucked away, you know, and I saved one of her like washable diapers and one of her washable pee pads. Can't really part with it. It's kind of odd, but love it. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, guys.
It has been.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Until next time, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Have a wonderful, beautiful night. Bye.